evening. Welcome to the Steelers Sanctuary podcast. Tonight is our Tuesday night edition of the good, bad, and the ugly. We'll be talking about those topics as it pertains to the recent win over the Cincinnati Bengals. Dave and Bob, how are you guys tonight?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Good. Well, there's a lot of good stuff to talk about, you know, when you have a huge shootout win like that, something the Steelers haven't done in a long time, putting up those kinds of points. Russell Wilson, I think, had his best game in black and gold and looked fantastic. And we had a lot of good things happen. There were some bad things happening too, or some ugly things maybe. And so let's not waste any time and let's just jump right into it with the goods. Dave, what was your good?
My good is TJ Watt. I think we talked about it on the podcast before, our preview podcast. I told people that pass rush was going to be key and they needed a big TJ Watt game. We got a big TJ Watt game. 2 sacks, 3 tackles for a loss, the big strip sack. He's so key to this defense. Him and Hall of Fame Herbig, let me get his name right. Those two guys are so key because what we'll get to in my bad later on, the secondary is a little shaky. So the better TJ Watt plays, the better this team is going to be, and he showed up in a big way.
It was nice to hear Tomlin like salivating at the press conference today about, you know, Alex Highsmith is set to return and the excitement over possibly having all of those guys there. Preston Smith as a compliment. He was excited. Bob, what about you?
My good was I think I went with the obvious was Russell Wilson. I mean, he was fantastic. I mean, there's only 3 quarterbacks in Steelers history who have thrown for 3 touchdowns and 400 yards in a game. One is Ben Roethlisberger. The other is touchdown Tommy Maddox or Tommy Gun Maddox. And now Russell Wilson. That's pretty good. Bradshaw never did it. A lot of guys in between have never done it. So, you know, he played virtually a flawless game. The pick 6 was definitely not his fault. It should have been a penalty. But, you know, otherwise – you know, and granted, you know, okay, you're grading on a curve because the Bengals defense is terrible. I get it, but you still got to perform, and he did perform. So, yeah, I was very impressed with the 400 yards. I don't think it's repeatable, but, you know, if he's throwing 250 to 300 yards a game, getting us a couple touchdowns, I think it'll all work out in the end.
This is the best possible scenario, right? This is as good as we possibly could have asked from Russell Wilson. I'm shocked every week that he continues to do this.
Yeah. Somebody brought it up this morning on the Fans Morning Show, and they said, you know, he's exceeded like what everybody thought that he was going to do or whatever. But what was your realistic, I forget who was on there this morning, realistic expectation of what he was going to do this year? And I think it was Jeff Hawthorne. And he said, you know, I expected him to be a game manager. You know, I expected him to come in and just maintain the offense and not lose games. So I think being able to see him really excel like this is something exceptional to watch. And I'm like all on board with the Russell Wilson redemption tour. I was not that excited when we signed him. And he is definitely, I've said it before, he's definitely won me over. Well, my good this week was the offensive line, particularly Broderick Jones and Dan Moore. I was really happy to see Broderick kind of bounce back from the struggles he's having. We talked about this a little bit on the show last night. You know, we worry about that, him getting in his head with all of the struggles he's had. He's such a young player, I think 23 years old. And so you worry about all of those things. So to see him be able to shake that off and come out in this game and really look like he's starting to be the player that we expected him to be was really nice to see. And Dan Moore managed to really shut down Trey Hendrickson. I mean, he leads the league in sacks this season so far. And I mean, you didn't even know he was there. He would zero impact. So I thought for Moore to be able to do that, the partnership of them along with the other linemen really gave Russell Wilson the chance to get off some of those passes. And then when he couldn't, Russell was making good decisions. And then on top of that, be able to, you know, the run game wasn't even like it was needed, but it was still there and available. And, you know, it was just a well-balanced offense.
They have a potential. If this offensive line stays healthy, they could start gelling and really being the strength of this team. I mean, if they can repeat that performance, sky's the limit for those guys, man.
For the rest of this season, because then half of them will be gone.
The rest of the season for sure.
All right, let's talk a little bit about ugly. Bob, you want to go first?
We're doing ugly or bad?
Bad.
Oh, okay, we're doing bad.
We'll do Bad.
Yep.
Yeah, the bad was the penalties on George Pickens and Joey Porter. They're not rookies. They're still on their rookie contract. So I don't know if I can, kill them too much. The Porter PI penalties, yeah, they were legit. I still think a couple of those holding penalties were ticky-tack. I especially laughed this morning when they showed the pick six from Cam Taylor-Britt. And I heard somebody this morning, I forget who it was, say, "Oh, yeah, Pickett stumbled." Yeah, he stumbled because he got hit in the head. So, but that being said, and then the two unsportsmanlikes, I was looking at it, and a lot of people are comparing the Pickens gun thing to the Josh Allen gun thing. And I heard Joe Starkey saying, well, he cocked it, and that was the difference. I don't think it was the difference. I think it was he ran 15 yards downfield into the end zone and did it. So I think if he stands right where he was and does that, he gets away with it. It looks like he's signaling for a first down. But I think the extra running into the end zone really hurt him as far as that goes. So, we want to see these guys progress. They're two of our better players on the team. It's time to, let's put some of this to bed. Although I did hear, at least at this point now, Pickens is engaged with what he's doing to hurt the team versus when he pouts and gets upset on the sideline.
For me, the difference in those penalties between Porter and Pickens, and I know they were both a lot, so they get lumped together. But Pickens was making choices that led to those penalties where I think Porter is handsy. Do you know what I mean? He don't know that he's out there intentionally doing. Definitely that one at the end of the game where he mauled that guy for no reason.
That was definitely
he panicked, and that to me was just like a young player mistake. You know what I mean? He didn't need to panic, and he did, and he figured the penalty was better than the touchdown kind of thing. But a lot of the other ones, I thought there was some that could have gone either way, but I felt like, that to me was the big difference between them. Like, I don't think that Porter was actually out there making a choice to get the penalties, but I'll piggyback right on Bob with mine, because mine was really some of the non-calls. The one you mentioned about, against Pickens early in the game that led to that pick six. He was pulled down. We had Orlando Brown, was early to the party almost every snap. It was insane. And I know that this is like an offense driven league and they want, scoring. And so they give the offensive linemen a little bit of leeway, but it was excessive. The ones where he got called, I think it was like twice. It was so outrageous. Do you know what I mean? It was just out of control. So I felt like if you're going to call those kinds, it's always my mantra. If you're going to call those kind of ticky-tacky games and call all those penalties, then you've got to call them both ways, because we had, all kinds of face masks and holding and, pulling George Pickens down and all of those things that weren't called.
Both teams were very unhappy with the refs. Both teams were like, the refs were off their game big time. It was a bad shit. It's been like that all season, right? The refereeing this year has been horrendous.
It's been really bad.
Seems worse than usual.
Yeah.
All right. My bad is Mike Williams. Buddy, what's going on? I don't understand. This was kind of the knock on him with the Jets too, right? That he wasn't getting the playbook and he wasn't really understanding what was going on, and they were having a hard time getting him involved in the offense. And here he is a month later in Pittsburgh, and he can't beat out, Ben Skoranek and, Van Jefferson. This isn't the killer bees here where you're trying to beat out Martavis Bryant and Antonio Brown. I'm genuinely concerned that this guy is a slow learner at worst, or just, I can't explain it. A month in, how is Mike Williams not on the field contributing to this team? Does anybody have any idea? Because it can't be the Arthur Smith playbook. It just, you can't tell me. It's that complicated.
Not
he can't get on the field
like that.
No, it makes no sense.
Yeah. And he was out there, it wasn't like he got 0 snaps. You know what I mean? He just wasn't utilized in the game for anything.
He's a non-factor. A complete non-factor in the offense.
Yeah. Yeah, well, let's go ahead and shift into our uglies. I'll go first this time. My ugly was really kind of the reaction by the Bengals fans. You know what I mean? I struggled to find something different, and I was just so frustrated to get on social media and see them all complaining about that false start that they called late in the second or late in the first half, right before halftime. They felt like that made, that was the difference maker for this game. I mean, that was absurd. And I think it's a shame. I can understand their frustration. Joe Burrow is playing amazing football. We talked about this last night. I mean, by all accounts, he should be having an MVP season. I don't know if they award that to players when their team shits the bed and loses like 3/4 of their games. But, he's playing really well. I would argue he's playing better than Lamar is. And, to see the team just kind of falling apart like this, I can certainly understand why the fans are upset and frustrated. There's a lot of other stuff going on in that game to be angry about than that one weak call that they felt should have gone on and Landon Roberts.
Do you see the loser escalator that they keep referring to when they start leaving the game early?
Yes.
I love it. They were at almost a little bit after halftime. We're seeing pictures of them going down that escalator. It's like awesome.
Yeah, it makes it hard not to laugh at them a little bit when you
God.
see that stuff. You're like, come on. All right, what about you, Dave?
Oh, my ugly is a secondary. Right below wide receiver 2 through 5. This is my biggest concern on the team. I'll read you the PFF scores for this week. Joey Porter Jr., 32.4. Dante Jackson, 56.3. Cam Sutton, 63.2, which is higher than I would have given him. Minka got 56, and Deshaun Elliott 52, despite having like 11 tackles. This is concerning. I mean, we've been talking about Minka for a couple weeks now, how he's, not impacting these games like we like to. Joey Porter Jr., 6 penalties, 4 accepted. I thought Cam Sutton was kind of below average. I don't know how he got such a good PFF score. So it might be nitpicking a little bit, but when you give up 40-something points and you're going to see some teams like Philly and Baltimore again and in the playoffs, the secondary is a little scary, and I hope they can pick it up a little bit. And then did you see Mike Tomlin's at the press conference? He's kind of – I know he has to stick up for his players, but the way he talked about Joey Porter Jr. and he's like, we can't let, T. Higgins muscle us out and we're going to match. But other people cover him without getting 6 penalties. There's got to be a better solution.
Use our fouls. I didn't understand that one at all.
Mike had me scratching my head with this one.
I did an article today on his serial killer comment. He said, he has the mentality of a serial killer, which I thought was an interesting turn of phrase.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
Yeah,
right.
I'm not sure that's a good thing.
We were not hoping for that.
Like, there's got to be a better way. I get it. T. Higgins is tough, and Joey Porter's handsy. We know it, but Jesus Christ, 6 penalties is. You wouldn't expect your coach to be sticking up for you at a press conference after 6 penalties. But
I heard somebody else say today, and I thought this was a really good point, is that, they're going to talk about how the officials are targeting them and all of these things. But, who's really targeting them is the other team. They're going to see that, Joey Porter's got these long arms. You can get him riled up, make him uncomfortable. He's going to panic. He's going to flail his arms all around and, grab on and we'll be able to draw a penalty, at least 50% of the time. It's better than average odds. And so, I think that's a really valid concern, especially going in against some of these, Eagles, Kansas City, the Ravens again. I mean, you're kind of giving them the formula, so to speak, as to how to do that. I also saw somebody say that, somebody had asked, I think it was Fittipaldo, why Beanie played fewer snaps than Cam Sutton, because they felt that Sutton wasn't all that effective. And he indicated that Tomlin wanted Sutton's like veteran presence against a quarterback like Burrow. But I didn't, like you, I thought he played okay, but I didn't think he had like that much of an impact, in the game overall.
They're all tough matchups too. T. Higgins is tough. He's a great receiver.
It is.
Like he's gonna make bank as a free agent, right? Yeah. He's gonna probably be one of the highest paid free agents out there. And you got Jamar Chase on the other side, so you got to pick your poison. But I was hoping for a little better, but I think the best thing we can hope for is this, like I said earlier, this pass rush cranks it up and keeps them out of trouble.
Well, I can tell you my ugly.
Let's hear it.
For those of you who've watched Dan Orlovsky the last couple of days,
He's such a putz.
the genuflecting, it's unbelievable. Yeah, I saw it. John brought up that Burrow is an example of that's a team stat, not a quarterback stat. And Orlovsky went into this diatribe yesterday, and I thought Shannon Sharp was going to explode when he was saying how nothing is Joe Burrow's fault. He's playing as great as he can play, and these turnovers aren't his fault. And Sharp was like, sack fumbles are the quarterback's fault. He's like, the guy's coming from behind. He doesn't see him. He's like, okay, so when Daniel Jones gets hit from behind and fumbles the ball, he didn't see him. So, Justin Fields, he didn't see him. So, okay, so nothing's his fault. And then, talking about, and I do kind of agree with the whole grading on a curve, but when the Ravens beat the Bengals, there was no talk about how historically bad the Bengals defense is. But when the Steelers do it, all of a sudden there's these, but it's only the Bengals defense. Look, I think there's truth to the only the Bengals defense, but it was true when the Ravens did it. It's true when everybody else did it. I mean, the stats are unbelievable. I mean, I think it's only team in NFL history who's lost 6 games when they've scored 25 plus. The only team to lose 2 games when they score 38 plus, 35 plus. And look, he's not, other than a couple of fumbles, what you're going to get those sack fumbles, especially when you're going against TJ Watt and Hall of Fame Herbig and all the rest of the Steelers. It's going to happen. I mean, Russell Wilson, it happened with Myles Garrett. Does that mean Russell Wilson was loose with the ball? I mean, yeah, he kind of, he was one hand and Myles Garrett knocked it out. Okay, fine. But I guess that isn't Russell Wilson's fault, according to Dan Orlovsky. So, I mean, I really don't understand, because generally I think Orlovsky is okay in his analysis and he tries to go in depth. But I think he was way, way off base on this one. And at least this Steeler fan didn't appreciate, all the genuflection to go into explaining away why the Steelers defense and why Joe Burrow isn't responsible.
I said this last night, though, and it was the thing that I kept telling people yesterday. We win this game against the Bengals and put up 44 points, and then hear, but, putting the asterisk next to it again, just like all the other wins, do you know what I mean? Because Bengals defense isn't that good. But we have played against other teams with supposedly bad defenses and not been able to put up, more than 18 points or something. Do you know what I mean? 20 points. So, to be able to do that, I understand the idea, and I'm not saying that the Bengals defense is any good, but I'm saying we went into a situation with a shootout that we normally wouldn't be real confident we would win, and we did. Do you know what I mean? We managed to continue to score when we needed to score, and I think there's something to be said for that. But that's the narrative in the NFL. They have their favorites, their sweethearts, and those guys can do no wrong. And the other day somebody said it that if it was Cavalli said that if Patrick Mahomes had the game Russell Wilson had, we'd be seeing it on a 24/7 loop on TV all day. But because it's Wilson, they dismiss it and it's not that important or not as valid.
Right. Well, I mean, looking back, the Falcons held us to 6 field goals. That defense is not particularly good. It's okay. The Broncos defense, the Broncos defense is pretty good.
They didn't look good last night.
Yeah. Not well. Yeah, it didn't make any sense that game turned into a shootout. There's supposed to be 2 defensive teams, and but it's Jameis. They held us to 13 points, but Chargers probably the best defense in the NFL if you go statistically. We managed to score 20 against them. The Colts are kind of bad. We put 27 on them. I mean, when we played them, they were 24 on them. And if we don't let them get way out, I mean, just looking at it, the whole bad defense narrative, I mean, honestly, Dallas is probably the next worst defense we've played. And we
heard it before the Falcons game. We heard it before the Ravens game. Do you know what I mean?
We didn't hear it before the Falcons game. I don't remember hearing that about the Falcons. Everybody thought their defense was going to be pretty good.
decent, but I mean, there's still, once we won that game, then it became, well, their defense. Do you know what I mean? It was their defense.
No, I don't think it was that. I mean, the narrative that I heard after the Falcons game was we were lucky that we caught Kirk Cousins in his first start, and that he'll get much better. I mean, they held us to 18 points. I mean, there was no, hey, we beat it. We didn't score any touchdowns, so there shouldn't have been any celebrating of, hey, we kicked 6 field goals against a bad defense. I don't remember that. I remember the Cousins narrative that, okay, we caught Cousins at the wrong time. So I don't.
Well, the bottom line is people don't respect the Steelers' offense because it's been so long. So it's going to take a while to change people's opinion. It's going to take a couple more performances like that before people get on board. So many people are down on Russell Wilson too before the season. I mean, Schlereth, Sean Payton, everyone was like, he's terrible, he's washed, this and that. So it's tough to change those narratives when you don't watch the Steelers week in and week out. It's like, he's been good. He's been very, very good. Better than I thought he was going to be by a lot.
Much better.
Five out of 7 games we scored 30 plus points. So.
Whatever their point of view is, do you know what I mean? So whatever their slant is, they made predictions, or they assumed things, or they like or don't like, or believe in or don't believe in, or whatever you want to call it, some team, some coach, some quarterback. And so they look at things, through those lenses, and,
Yeah. Justin Fields Russell Wilson was universally not liked coming out of that last season in Denver. People thought he was done, washed.
Especially in the national media. Yeah, they were really hard on him.
Even some of the Pittsburgh guys on Twitter are like, no, this is a bad signing. He's washed. He holds the ball too long. We heard that got beaten into us. Like, he led the league in holding the ball too long and this and that. And
I said it today. That's not wrong. Do you know what I mean? The numbers are what the numbers are. So if he held the ball too long,
but there could have been circumstances to that, right?
Different circumstances, different team, different offensive line, different plays.
I specifically remember Kaboli saying that he hadn't had a good year, that it wasn't just Denver. The last 2 years in Seattle were bad too.
Yeah.
So Kaboli was, he was down on him. Then all of a sudden he wasn't. So now you could argue that Kaboli might be his biggest fan.
This is the most positive I've ever heard Kaboli ever. Ever. Like,
this is the perfect.
He's like very negative, like to the point where sometimes watching him I find painful. This is
the perfect landing spot for Russell Wilson. And people downplayed that. I got to give a tip to Dave Korab. He's the one that kept saying it. This is a perfect spot for him. He's gonna do well. And even I was a little skeptical. Like, you start listening to all the negativity. He's done. He's washed up. He, like Bob said, he was bad the last 2 years in Seattle. And he's proven everybody wrong.
Yeah.
For sure.
But how, I saw somebody did you see that video? And I don't remember who did it. So I'm not going to credit anybody, but somebody put a video together on Twitter that showed like the old interactions between him and Sean Payton, and then the new interactions between him and Mike Tomlin, and talked about like what a difference like that, just being treated like in a respectful manner, where you're valued, how much that stuff makes a difference. And I thought it was funny. Arthur Moat said on his show yesterday, he said, oh yeah, he said, Russ is coming back. Tomlin kissed him on the top of the head. He loves that man.
The whole thing in Denver was bizarre. I don't know why Sean Payton disliked him so much. Like, I think Sean Payton's a great offensive coach, and I respect his.
You think it's because he didn't choose him?
I guess it has to be, but
it's specifically the type of offense Payton runs. He wants a quarterback like Breeze to walk up and read the defense pre-snap, and he wants the ball gone immediately.
I feel like Russell's doing that for us now. Like he's changing plays of the line. He's
not until after Arthur Smith went ballistic in the Ravens game. He wasn't. There was, that's when it changed. It flipped, and it didn't really happen in the Browns game, but it did happen in this game.
Yeah, he was definitely doing this game.
But that's why Peyton didn't like him. He wanted, and part of this was Drew Brees' arm strength. He couldn't throw the ball down the field, so he couldn't sit and look and throw it downfield. And if you look back at, when Michael Thomas was killing it, that most of those routes were 10-yard curl routes. So you look back at what he wants. He wants you to walk up, pre-read the defense, and Brady was really good at this too, and figure out, before I snap the ball, if my eyes see what I see, I'm going here. The only way I'm not going there is if I got fooled, and then I've got to change and go to and go to your second and third read. People look back and say, "Oh, Brady, he could read the field. He could read the field pre-snap. He wasn't. No quarterback could stand back there and go through 5 progressions and then say, okay, I'm going to throw it here, because you don't have the time." So I think the whole narrative of he didn't choose him, he didn't like him, he doesn't. No, Peyton didn't like his style of play. I think it's very unfair to Sean Payton to say he just personally didn't like Russell Wilson. I think a lot of Denver players didn't personally like Russell Wilson, especially his center, Lloyd Cushenberry, who wanted to fight him on the sidelines before he got benched.
Sean Payton said things that gave the appearance that he didn't like Russell Wilson. So I don't know. I don't talk to people I like the way he talked to people. So
he was definitely rough on Russell Wilson. You saw some of the interactions on the sideline. It was pretty bad.
Yeah. And it wasn't like this is coaching shit. It was if that's how he coaches, I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard that about him as a coach from other players.
Yeah, he can't be treating Bo Nix like that. Bo Nix wouldn't be as successful as he is if he was getting screamed at like that.
But remember earlier this year, him and Bo Nix got into it on the sideline.
Yeah, Bo Nix gave it back to him too.
Every coach and player get into it to some degree or another at some point, but it seemed like more than that.
Some of that's felt personal.
It's not fair to a Super Bowl winning coach who's been around the league for 30 years as a coordinator and a coach.
Again,
all of a sudden say he just personally didn't like one player.
I think it's part of it, Bob. I really do. I think it's part of it. I
don't think he personally disliked Wilson. I think he disliked his playing style.
I think it was a little personal, because the way those interactions on the sideline and some of the things he said, I get it. Sean Payton's not going to, hurt himself purposely and let his ego, cloud his judgment to that level. But I think he came in with a preconceived idea, and he didn't. Russell Wilson wasn't his guy, and he wanted to move on as quickly as possible.
And maybe it became personal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe it became personal.
Was going on, and it became more personal. Do you know what I mean? Or his frustration made it more personal, but it definitely felt that way.
People have said Russell Wilson could be a lot. I mean, his entourage and his, people upset he can be a lot at times. So he's not completely innocent in that either,
but personal office the year before. Yeah. I mean, there could have been an edict from management saying, hey, go ride the shit out of this guy and get him out of town.
Well, it's probably not good for the team when one guy is above the rest like that. So maybe that's why Sean Payton decided to single him out and say nobody's above the rest of the team, you're not getting your own office and blah, blah, blah.
Kenny Pickett had an office.
That's all you need to know. It's a bad idea. Terrible idea.
Yeah. So Hard Knocks starts tonight, guys. I think it's 9:00 on HBO. And tonight is the first episode. I think we've got 6 episodes, although I heard the guy that's the producer say we hope there's more. So I guess they're hoping whatever that postseason run looks like, maybe they'll get to hang around a little longer. What are you guys kind of expecting from this first episode tonight?
I just can't wait to see, compare and contrast what the Steelers behind the scenes is with the Bengals and how especially the Steelers and Ravens, right? Those are the 2 teams that matter at this point. And the Browns, we know it's a shit show. We don't have to see it behind the scenes to know it. But yeah, how the Steelers and Ravens go about their business. I wouldn't mind seeing some Deontay Johnson stuff behind the scenes, see what's going on over there too. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
I think he's a big enough story that they'll do that.
I hope so.
The crossover, do you know what I mean, between the 2 teams. So if they can make it dramatic, I think they would. Do you know what I mean? If they can somehow build on the drama aspect of it. What are you expecting, Bob?
I really don't know what to expect. I'm not a huge fan of the show. I'm going to watch it because the Steelers are on it.
Right. That's how I feel.
Really, in the past, I've kind of watched the things and I all thought it was staged and kind of fake. I'm interested to see if they show before the game or during the interaction after the game where Tomlin was mic'd up and he was upset that he was mic'd up. So, I don't know kind of what to expect. I think maybe this could do George Pickens a little bit of good if he, if behind the scenes he is what a lot of the reporters who interview him say he is.
Yeah.
He's a very gregarious and engaging and fun guy who's hard not to like, but also is very stubborn and set in his ways that he don't really care. So I'm interested to see what Pickens is like behind the scenes, because I got to imagine he's going to be the subject.
He's got to be one of the stars of this thing, right? Yeah, he's got to be one of the focus players for
He's
sure.
Hilarious. Yeah, I think he's hilarious even when he doesn't try to be hilarious, which makes him even funnier. So I think, and you know who else I think is going to shine through on this is Najee Harris. I think he gets a bad rap as being, not nice. And I think he's got a really dry, funny, sarcastic sense of humor. And I think he might, I hope, they paint him in a fair light and he shines, because I think he's got a fantastic personality. He's a lot of fun. All right. Any thoughts, guys? It's onward and upwards, back to the Browns on Sunday. Get them out of the way. Put that game to rest. We'll put the Browns to rest, for the season. But let's put this Bengals game to bed. Do you guys have any final thoughts on the Bengals? We'll see them the final week of the season. I think that'll be interesting, because depending on where we are, we might not be playing any starters. The Bengals might not be playing any starters. I can't imagine they want a chance, anybody getting hurt for a game that's not going to matter. So I don't know how much of a factor that game is anymore. But any final thoughts on this game that actually mattered against the Bengals?
Just want to say, the Bengals are now in a hope somebody loses a bunch, and they're still technically alive. They get Dallas this week. So, could they roll into our game 8-8 with an outside mathematical chance to make the playoffs? Yes, but I think they're done. They're 4-8. I don't think they'll lose to Dallas, but I think all it's going to take is one more loss along the way and they shut it down. I think Burrow will play until they're mathematically eliminated. Then if you're smart, you shut him down. You probably shut Jamar Chase down, because he's probably the guy that you're going to want to bring back, and let T. Higgins catch passes from Jake Browning.
I think it'll be hard for the Cowboys to win a shootout against them this weekend. I think that's what the Bengals really have working in their favor. So
I would have said that about the Commanders 2 weeks ago, but
that's true. That's true. But
I bet they're dying to shut Joe Burrow down at this point, right? Because his wrist is already an issue, and they're 4-8.
Are they playing in Dallas or in Cincy? I don't know.
I don't know that either.
I actually do know that, but I got to look it up real quick, because
I know Burrow's struggling a little bit in the cold weather. So, sometimes maybe being at home might not even be the biggest advantage for him versus playing in a dome in Dallas. Maybe that would help his wrist out some. I don't know.
Bengals are at Dallas.
At Dallas. Okay. That's interesting.
I tell you, he'd get a vote for me for MVP. He's been fantastic.
He really has.
The MVP can't be 4-8. Come on now.
I agree.
I don't think he's going to win it, but if you're talking best player in the NFL this season, he's right up there with anybody.
Yeah.
I think Josh Allen, barring
Josh Allen seems to be inside.
Yeah. Josh Allen is 1, Lamar Jackson is probably 2, and then it's everybody else.
I think there's a big desire to see Lamar get a third. Do you know what I mean? I think that there's a desire for that from a lot of
There's
a lot of pushback from the analyst media types who are like, hey, you can't say Lamar's the MVP if you don't win the division. If they turn out going 10-7, and Allen is the 1 or 2 seed, I think at that point, if Josh Allen has a Josh Allen game and suddenly starts turning over the ball, then I think it opens the door for Saquon Barkley, who probably realistically is the MVP.
That's a good point. I think he's been great.
He really could be.
Lamar Jackson's been pretty good too. He's been really good. He's right up there.
Yeah, but Saquon has done some remarkable things that other running backs aren't doing. I think it's an interesting quarterback race this year where a lot of the great quarterbacks aren't great quarterbacking. Do you know what I mean? It hasn't been the way it normally is. And I think that kind of changes that look. So it should almost open it up for Barkley. David chimed in to say Russell Wilson for the MVP.
Easy.
I'm telling you, you know what? As well as he played, if he played this whole season, hadn't had the calf injury, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. If they win the division going away,
Yeah.
I mean, and he plays like he played yesterday.
Yeah.
Maybe he gets a little, you know, he won't win it, but
No, but
Jesus.
he should just get some kind of honorable mention or something for somebody who missed 6 games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
All right, guys. Any final thoughts before we wrap up to put a pin on the Bengals for now?
No, looking forward to Hard Knocks tonight, and
Yep.
tomorrow morning we're going to be on reviewing it, right?
Yep. Bright and early at 10 a.m.
Tomorrow, 10 a.m. to talk about the Hard Knocks episode, and then back again on Thursday at 6:30 to preview the Browns game.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. When you joined in tonight, people that made comments, we really appreciate it. If you could do us a favor and like, share, and subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, that would be a big help. You can also follow all of us on social media, as well as the Steelers Sanctuary page and the Steelers Sanctuary podcast page. And we appreciate all of you tuning in. Thank you.
No, it's over.
Well, bye.